we'll try to make this discussion as interactive as possible on that note. So why don't we just go down the line, each one of us tell us a little bit about your fund and what you're focusing on today, and just down the line. James, you start.
Very quickly, Lightspeed China, we are an early stage venture capital firm focused in TNTs in China, and we are affiliated with Lightspeed Ventures in the US. So we just recently raised a new fund, about $300 million, and also started an R&D fund as well. So we do mostly a Series A investment, and we'll talk more later.
Okay, sure.
Sure, my name is Chang. I'm a partner with 8 Roads Ventures, which actually is the proprietary investment arm for VC and private equity, actually, for Fidelity International. So 8 Roads is actually a pretty new brand. What we did was we took all of the Fidelity funds across Europe, across Asia, and put it under the 8 Roads umbrella, basically in the last year. Largely because Fidelity obviously has been very active investing for the last 50 years, really, in venture capital, but we've always been very under the radar because obviously we're a very large financial institution doing a lot of other things on the sell side, and so lots of sensitivities, both in terms of what we could go invest in, but also we didn't like to participate in events like this before because we just wanted to be under the radar. So we've made a decision in the last, basically the last year, to become much more active on these types of outreach events, much more flexible in terms of the types of investments we can make. And so that's why we're under the 8 Roads umbrella now. We also have, of course, the F-Prime group, which is the Fidelity, old Fidelity venture outfit in the US, which I can't actually explain why they're not under the 8 Roads umbrella, because I haven't had that answered to me yet. But they are actually working very, very closely with us as well. So for instance, in China, we're actually very active in the healthcare space. And F-Prime actually co-invests pretty much in every single investment we make in healthcare in China. Outside of healthcare, which we're very strong globally, we're also very active naturally in fintech. This is a very natural fit with Fidelity. And the other area, which is the area that I personally focus a lot more, is in enterprise technology. Because again, Fidelity is one of the leading adopters of technology among financial institutions, and so again, a very natural fit.
Joseph?
Joseph Chan, partner here with Sidley Austin. There is actually, or there was, in Mr. Sidley and Mr. Austin, we combined law practice 150 years ago. So this is actually a pretty seminal year for us because we're celebrating this year of the 150th anniversary. You may have heard of us as the law firm most associated with the Obamas, especially with Southside with You, that just came out. Actually feature the story of how it's actually in our Chicago office that the president and the first lady met. And there is a delightful article actually on Huffington Post that just came out, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, where we actually, a former managing partner, who kind of put them together, wrote a memo of sort, in case you're interested. In spite of the fact that we have been around for 150 years, we actually work with a lot of startups and technology companies. In the US, we work with the likes of Microsoft, eBay, PayPal, as well as a lot of funded emerging growth companies. Here in China, we work with, we were mentioning the BAT. We are very privileged to have been working very closely with the B and A, Baidu and Alibaba, in a variety of their investments and legal matters. But we also work with a lot of entrepreneurs and venture funds, both here China-based and US-based and elsewhere. So it's been a lot of fun working with entrepreneurs and their investors in growing their business. So for example, I worked on the Series A deal with, among many startups, Tunio, when Alex was working out of a nondescript, if you can call it, office in Hangzhou, 10 years ago.
Okay.
I'm Jonathan Chu from Shanghai Capital. We're a new fund, new VC fund, mostly in we're a US dollar and both US dollar and RMB based fund, mostly focusing TMT sectors and Series A deals. So we're based in Shanghai, so most of the team are in China, but I'm actually myself based in Slicon Valley. So we look at a lot of TMT deals both in China and the US. And our team are actually, a lot of the team members are actually from Lightspeed China. So my co-founder, Ron Cao, is actually ex-colleague of James, also a co-founder of Lightspeed China. So, and I used to work in the Valley, and I actually worked for Tencent for a few years. And after that, I worked for a VC firm by Tencent co-founder. The name is Jason Zhen. We're one of the biggest early stage fund or actually fund in China. And so we just I just team up with Wang, and we create this new fund. And again, we are looking for deals both in China and US, and mostly technology related.
DraperDragon.
Yes, my name is Richard. Come from DraperDragon. It will always have hard time to introduce our fund because we have a different complicated history. But anyway, if any one of you know about DFJ in Silicon Valley, that was founded by Tim Draper, and he was the early investor for Baidu.
Yeah, Chang Draper has spoken at our events in Silicon Valley, and so has his father.
Right. Well, actually, Tim was in Beijing. We was in Beijing in a couple of days ago to have our own forum there. But anyway, so DFJ was founded in 1985, and now we have a so-called Draper Venture Network, which means that we have a different affiliate from in global base. So in China, actually we was calling DraperDragon, but we've been in China for 10 years already, and we renamed our brand to DraperDragon. That's why you see the name here, DraperDragon. But we just have this new name this year. And we have a USD fund and also RMB fund. For USD fund, actually we have number 3 right now. And the number 3 USD fund actually focus on angel seed stages, but only invest in the US-based companies and Silicon-based company. And we also have the RMB fund, but the RMB fund, we have 2 funds right now. One actually is the late stage, and the one new fund is focused on early stage as well. So that's our fund status in China today.
So many of you are representing new funds or new offshoots of funds, of old funds. So what's going on in the VC market is causing kind of this transformation among VC funds, fundraising, new names, rebranding, spin-offs. What's going on in the VC world that's causing this kind of, well, I wouldn't say chaos, but a lot of change.
Yeah, I think one thing is what we actually heard from the previous panelists talking about the winter capital for the capital markets. We actually see about 2 years ago, this is the opposite. There's so much money wants to invest in China, right? And when we were raising in 2014 the previous fund, before we came out, it's oversubscribed, and we had to turn down LPs want to invest 40 million or 50 million in a fund. And it ended up that the LP couldn't put in a fund; they had to find other alternatives, right? So I think at that time there are a lot of new funds being created, small funds being created because there's so much demand for investment. I think this time around is slightly different. The headline kind of a macroeconomic slowdown in China that kind of creates some anxieties for the US LPs. But we see the new funds are still being created, but the fundraising is taking a bit more time. And for our funds, and I think there's a general trend here in China is there's a lot of very successful, our performance is extremely good. But all the funds, when they are very good, early stage funds, they tend to be growing big, and then they become $1 billion fund. And so we try to be more disciplined. And so our new fund is also heavily oversubscribed. We want to learn from the US counterparts like a benchmark, and really keep the fund size meaningful and focus on the early stage, because it's very tempting to just create a big fund, but then you have to deploy a lot of the late stage, which is, I would say, is a little bit more challenging because the IPO market valuation is really being adjusted. So I think this is a very natural, and I think that in 2000, we see a lot of similar things in the US. And I was an entrepreneur in 1999, And a lot of the VC tried to invest in my company, and then 3 years later, many of the firms don't really exist. So I think there's ebbs and flows of these capital markets, and people really need to be focused in, I think, build a long-term franchise.
Anyone else on this transformation question?
So I'll speak it from my perspective. I think if you look at what's happening, I would draw back from something from one of the earlier panels that I think Robin said around, and really what James is saying as well, around the market just being flooded with all these funds. I do think that what we're seeing is a drive towards specialization to some extent.
Yeah, with 600 funds out there, that's amazing, 600.
I think you have to have a way to begin to differentiate yourself. And so I think we went through a period in this industry where, over the last 15 years, first of all, really the only game in town was B2C. Okay? And I think, for one, I personally believe there's obviously other spaces which are great investment opportunities. Healthcare has been very, very good to Fidelity and to 8 Roads. And I just came over from SoftBank China. I can say that was also very good to us over at SoftBank. And in my case, I'm very, very high on enterprise technology. I think we're at a period in time where China finally is going to come up.
Is that a disruptive area?
I think what you really have is, if you look at the market today, it's different from what China IT has been at any other place in time. So there's a lot of investors out there who may have said, hey, I've looked at this 10 years ago, I looked at this 15 years ago, and there's just not a whole lot there. In fact, when I was at Cisco, I was running investments for Cisco in Greater China. I told my boss in 2010, don't even think you're gonna go find anything that's gonna be interesting from a technology perspective in China, because there isn't anything. And I truly believe that. And I think in my first 3 years at Cisco, we encountered maybe 2 companies that I thought might be interesting, brought in some distinguished engineers to take a look, and they said, no, this isn't interesting. Okay. The last 12 months I was at Cisco, this was basically after the NSA Snowden situation, everything changed, right? And all of a sudden we saw these teams come out of nowhere. And what I think changed in a big way was, number one, the market itself has evolved to one which is very different from where it was 10 or 15 years ago. I think today some people still think, and in fact I heard some people say in panels earlier, this is a market where people don't necessarily appreciate the technology. Or maybe they didn't say that, maybe I misinterpreted that, but I've met people who feel that way. And I think what's happening is they're still caught up in what was happening 10 years ago. If you interact, for instance, with the Chinese banks, like the China Merchants Bank, Communications Bank, these guys, from an IT perspective, are as sophisticated as HSBC, as Standard Chartered, or Citibank. Because a lot of these guys are coming from, Citibank and Standard Chartered. It's just a very different world. Another example is prior to NSA Snowden, when I was at Cisco, we owned 80% of the market share at the state-owned banks. And that's not a customer base that's unsophisticated, that only wants low cost and cheap stuff. They want the very best stuff. Okay? And so you have a market that IDC is projecting in 5 years to not just overtake the US, but will be larger than the US on the IT side by as much as 50%. Okay? So market big. The second huge thing that has changed is the fact that with NSA Snowden, you have a much larger focus on on national security. Okay, and so the whole localization thing, it's actually become real. And I saw that myself when I was at Cisco. I saw what the impact was on our business and what that meant. And I think what's also happened was, because you basically created a blue ocean where the multinationals are going to have a much harder time, who's going to take that market? And I think what you have is a bunch of talent that previously did not go and start up companies in China in the IT space. A lot of that talent was in multinationals or even Chinese companies, large Chinese companies in China. They started seeing that opportunity that came out. But there's also the returnees from Silicon Valley.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah, the returning factor. Let's talk a little bit about about frontier technologies as well. And where are you placing your bets on today? And do you feel like you're taking big risks today as VC investors? How do you feel about it? And what are the areas that you're investing in that you think are going to be the future home runs, particularly from China? Okay, none of you? No home runs here. Come on, your VCs. All of you have some home runs, right? Or potential. Okay, go ahead. Richard, why don't you go?
Yeah, okay. Actually, I have some comment about the transformation that we have just talked about earlier, right? So we do see the change. So for us, actually, we do see some vertical sector that we can work with local partners. For example, actually, we have a new fund with a security companies here in local, and also we have a new fund working with a state-owned company, which actually focus on more vertical sector like the aviations. So, and talk about the sector that we are focused on. Right now, for our fund, actually, we focus on the application based on the AI technique. So, actually, we do, for example, if you know about the Silicon Valley, we have an accelerator called Boost. Actually, we invest a lot of VR, AR portfolio actually to maybe 30, 40 portfolio already today. And the other sector, actually, we are pretty focused on is fintech. So as you know, we have the we invest the third biggest third-party payment company in China today, and we also have invest a lot of software enterprise software company which actually focus on financial institutions sectors. So we do see these two sectors are focused on today.
Okay. James?
Yeah, we really like a few areas, and one you heard a lot about the Internet Plus, right? And we started investing in that area about 5 years ago. So in the travel space, for example, we are the earliest investor for Tujia. Some of you have heard, it's really the biggest Airbnb model company in China. And in the fintech space, and we think it's another Internet Plus area that we are the earliest investor for Roam 360. That's really the search and marketplace for all the financial services. And the reason for that opportunity, we think, is in China, the traditional industries, they tend to have very short history compared with US. And many of these vertical industry, the efficiency is not very high. So once you pick the really big markets, and then you can really disrupt it. To give another example, we invested in a company called Yunman, that they do an Uber model for long-distance trucks. And most of the trucks you see on the highways, 95% of the trucks actually not owned by any company. They are all owned by individual drivers. The driver lives on the truck. But the problem is when they ship something from Shanghai to Hangzhou, they don't know what to ship back. They actually have to go to a local market and pay some money and then look at the blackboard, all the information about potential goods they can ship it back. Sometimes they have to stay there for a day. But they all have smartphones. So now that this company is also the co-founders, very similar background as the DD co-founders, Alibaba, and they really built this largest platform and building the largest virtual fleet company. And you don't hear it very much, right? But this is a very, very big industry.
Yeah, very disruptive as well.
Yeah, and certainly we talk a lot about this enterprise business, and Lightspeed in the US is known for one of the top venture investors for enterprise. And we did a study, there are more unicorn companies in enterprise than in consumer internet. Although consumer internet, once you have a unicorn company, you become very big. Right? We are the angel investor for Snapchat. We put $1 million in the company for 10%. Now it's becoming $20 billion. Enterprise, you don't get to $20 billion, you get to maybe a few billion. But there are many of them in the US. And so in China, very similar to what Joseph said, we think this is an area, there's a lot of talents here, and it'll tell you the internet, why there's so many public companies in China for internet success, because also people know there's this great firewall, right? And that's what makes it very difficult for these multinational companies to compete. I was building Google in 2003 from scratch, and certainly there are a lot of challenges for us. One of them is regulatory issues, but that's happening in enterprise. the government is really mandating the large companies to use domestic developed technology because of the reasons that Joseph mentioned. So this is really, we think, in the future, including AI technologies, SaaS, cloud computing, will be a very big market.
So very broad, okay.
Yeah, we actually spend a lot of time on frontier technologies. That's actually one of the major reasons I spent a lot of time in the US, actually in the Valley specifically. And I probably spent 50% of my time in the past few months just on AI. So I happen to be an AI PhD candidate a long time back, but I didn't finish it, and I changed to networking, and I joined Cisco right after my study. But AI just came back. This is kind of, back then it was called AI winter, but now it's boom time for AI. And now people are talking about AI plus, right? So after Internet plus, and Google are claiming themselves as an AI company. And you can see a lot of disruptive forces in AI. And we have seen a lot of very promising AI startups like Lightspeed today. So which is very interesting to us. So basically in the Valley, I actually spent a lot of time with people from Google, from Facebook, from Stanford. I probably eat my every lunch in their cafeteria just to understand what is the current frontier, what's the latest progress on the technology side.
So you have to go to Silicon Valley to see what the technology frontiers are? You can't see it here in, say, Beijing software.
That is a very good question. So if we go back to my school years, you can see a lot of students still went to the US for those frontier technologies. I think today it's still like to some extent. So we still see a lot of new breakthrough in research labs, in the campuses, in the probably US or European.
Do you think there'll ever come a day when China will actually lead technology and will lead the US in technology innovation?
This is a very good question. So I think some of the panelists mentioned that we saw technology from France in the US, but we saw a lot of first adaptation in China. So which makes it very interesting that we might see, for example, VR. So we don't see a lot of real estate companies in the US to adopt the VR technology yet, but we see it very, very often in China. So which might make the situation more interesting because, and also at the same time we see a lot of returnees from the Valley back to China. A lot of them actually work in some of the key research labs or universities for a long time. They all come back. So brings back a lot of good technologies. I don't have a good answer, but I think China is catching up very, very fast.
Okay.
Do you mind if I step in? Because I have a very strong view on this one, which is I don't think anyone here would necessarily say that China in the near term is going to overtake Silicon Valley as the hotbed of innovation. But I think something that is happening today that I see underway, which is really unprecedented in my view, is the fact that for the first time you are seeing world-class technology innovation in China, and it is coming because the people who went overseas got their PhDs from MIT, from Stanford, or from Princeton. Many of these people have been working in the Valley for the last 15, 20 years. Okay? And we see it in the healthcare space as well, PhDs, MDs. Okay? And this is one area we, as Fidelity and 8 Roads, we were very successful looking at healthcare companies with these returnees coming after a big latent market. Okay? And this is why I'm very bullish on the enterprise tech space as well. It's because what we're seeing now is we're seeing these folks who've been running engineering organizations for the large tech companies or for startups in the Valley. When I was at Cisco, I ran around the business engineering groups, and I would tell you like a third to a half of the people there in these engineering organizations are actually from mainland China. And they're getting to a stage in their careers where now they see this big opportunity in China because of the things that James had talked about, and they're coming back. And so I'm seeing companies that are the best at what they do anywhere in the world. They're coming to China to build a company and get scale because of the market opportunity, but make no mistake, their eyes are on the rest of the world. And they're already going after it. And we see that in security. By the way, security sector is a great example. If you look at the US, you look at the large, anyone from Palo Alto Networks, Fortinet, Checkpoint, FireEye, Sitefort, CTO of Sitefort, Feng Gongli. Okay? This guy is kind of the godfather of security in the Valley. 还有个大帮会, right, of security folks. These guys are all Chinese guys. And a bunch of them, not all of them, but enough of them are coming back home because they're seeing this opportunity. But you're seeing it everything. I saw a guy who was on the founding team of AWS, built their load balancer, Elasticsearch, and he's doing hyperscale in China. Okay? And he's taking it to a level where he says, it's better than Scale IO by orders of magnitude. Okay? You're seeing, a team, the CTO of Delphix, founder of Delphix, is now founding in China, taking it to the next level. Here in China. So I believe that within 5 to 7 years, you're going to start seeing some leading global tech companies coming out of China, and now is the time. For me, this is the time to invest.
That is why I also make a lot of trips back to China very quickly. So I cannot just stay in the valley.
And also, another phenomenon is happening is people probably don't see from this angle is a lot of Chinese companies are setting up R&D centers in Silicon Valley. And Arvid mentioned about the Baidu guy, he's really the key artificial intelligence guy. Google spent tons of money, approached him from Stanford, and he's also the co-founder for Coursera, right? And he heads up all the Google artificial intelligence lab. And then eventually, Robin went to Silicon Valley and attracted him to Baidu, right? There's so many examples that these Chinese companies can pay top-notch compensation and stock options and really can attract these people, technical talents. So I kind of tend to agree that we have portfolio companies in the cloud computing space already #1 in the world. And so gradually we think the innovation will really be coming out of China.
So as China's venture and tech entrepreneur market has evolved and matured over the past decade, and it seems to have gone more domestic, more local within China, and has also led to more R&D funds and going local, going public in China. Do you see that this trend of being localized, going public in China, raising money in China, and R&D, is that going to continue to be a driver? Joseph, from where you sit, because you're working with these venture funds and also the venture financing, so you're seeing this from many angles.
I'm a board lawyer as compared to what these guys do. No, just kidding.
You're a deal maker.
We get to see a lot of interesting companies. Part of our value add is to play matchmaking because we're in the ecosystem. I think that trend will continue, but given the ever-changing landscape in China is oftentimes fraught with uncertainty. You're talking about domestic IPOs. I think the last panel talked about that. You never know what the regulators may say. The window may be open today, 6 months from now may be shut, maybe another moratorium. If you are an investor, that's really among the last thing they want to see or hear, because we need the certainty of exit. And for the health of the whole ecosystem, you need that infrastructure in place. Same with the M&A market. In the US, for the past 3 decades, 70% of startups, funded startups, eventually get acquired. Only a distinct minority make it to the public equity markets, NASDAQ or NYSE. That's beginning to happen, although not at the scale I would like to see. So you have BAT, right? They have been acquisitive. And I think the last panel mentioned this. Oftentimes they become the drivers. You have startups that model their business plan so that they become attractive to the BATs. Because the BAT or the likes have the capital, they have the cash, they have the war chest, so they drive up valuation. But that's beginning to happen in the M&A market. So I think this dichotomy between an offshore exit and onshore exit will continue to exist. RB funds will continue to be raised, although depending on the macro climate, I think one will have the advantage over the other.
James, you have RMB and US dollar
That's right.
funds.
And we didn't think about raising RMB fund for many years, and we thought we could just focus on US dollar. And it really took me one example. I invested in a company called 联络互动, and probably some of you probably heard about it, but many of your Android phone probably is using that. You build this OS on top of the Android, and so it's a mobile internet company. And we invested and become very profitable. We were thinking about taking the company public in the US, but there's no kind of comparable company in the US stock market. So about 2.5 years ago, I asked the company to explore listing in China. But it's very difficult because I'm a US dollar investor, right? And for internet company, you need this ICP license. And they usually give only to Chinese entities, not any foreign-owned or companies. So it actually took my experience because I built Google business from scratch in 2013 and 2003, and I created the first joint venture for Google and got an ICP license for Google. So we really helped the company to got that. So they are the only mobile internet company in China now. There's a joint venture structure, got an ICP license, got a China SEC approval, now it's public. And then so we got rewarded because market cap now is about $7 billion equivalent. And then we probably won't be able to get even half of that valuation in US. So that really prompted us to look at the domestic market more closely. And my prediction is in the next 5 years, the listings in China, I think there will be probably even more for high-tech companies. Short term, there's a lot of uncertainties. A lot of these companies are privatized and try to list it in China now. I think they are totally stuck because the China SEC doesn't want to approve these shell merging process. But after high quality company being listed and digested the capital flow, the government really wants a high quality company to be listed in China. So I think the trend will be we have to be prepared for both. So I think for our investors, we try to create this JV structure so we can list in China or we can take it public in the US. But the trend in general, I think the domestic market will be very meaningful access.
Even the China leadership is talking about the tech economy and how important it is to drive this economy forward and to also maybe correct some of the slowdown that we're seeing, which makes me think about the unicorns and the incredible surge of unicorn financings, which was in the U.S. and China was the second largest market for unicorn financings. Has that era passed now? Are we going to see more unicorns coming up, or is that over now?
I think we think its valuation definitely is coming down. I think the one reason in the U.S. we see actually a lot of the hedge funds, they are playing in the public market. They were coming into private market because they want to get hands on these high growth companies early. So that drives us to valuation. But we call them, we have a term for them, we call them tourist capital. And now the tourists are gone. And so in the U.S., the hedge funds are gone and they are now putting money in these private companies. The valuation is really being corrected. In China, I think it's happening also. But there is still large funds being raised for top companies because now the money is more focused on the winners than the two companies in the sector.
So are we going to see some unicorpses from all of these unicorn financings? I see your head shaking.
Yes, definitely. So basically, based on the past few, as you can see, we see a lot of companies actually have problems using new routes. I think it's same across both in China and the US. And but on the other hand, we still see a lot of actually, I think we always see two extremes probably happen at the same time. So we see a lot of dead unicorns. We're going to see a lot of new unicorns born. If you look at artificial intelligence, I would say probably start seeing a lot of high flyers very, very soon. I mean, a lot of them are already there. And because for one thing, it's like I just mentioned, it's very likely to be the next disruptive technology. Second thing is a lot of talents actually are very, very difficult to acquire. So that's why VCs, both VCs and the strategic corporate funds, they like to pay a lot of premium just to secure those talents. So actually in VR we already see a lot, and the AI I think will be the next. So it's hard to say, but I would still say for in what we call it promising sectors, we're still gonna see a lot of new high flyers, which you're gonna see a lot of very high valuation. The competition is still very high.
Yeah. Okay. Did you want to add something?
Yes, I'd like to give some comment about the domestic market RMB fund, something compared with USD fund. What? Actually, we are in China for 10 years. So in the beginning, we have a USD fund 1 and fund 2. Actually, we focus on VI structured company, which means that it's a it's a foreign-based company, but focus on China market, right? So that's VI structure. But today, actually, we pretty believe that the domestic market is going to be grows faster and faster because we think the secondary market is going to be more mature, which means the exit for us, either for the IPO or acquisition, is going to be more popular or easier. So with that said, so we have a strategy that now we have a USD Fund 3, actually only focus on the US-based company, not a Chinese-based company, but with the offshore structure. But in the meantime, we also have RMB company, RMB fund, actually focus on RMB portfolio, because again, we believe the domestic market going to be strong all the way.
So venture capital comes and goes, and it goes in cycles, ups and downs, and I'm curious about whether each one of your funds is investing more capital today and tomorrow, or less. So how are you hedging your bets, more or less capital being invested in startups?
So I just moved over, so I'm definitely going to say, we're going to do a lot more. The fact of the matter is, I think because of where the market is heading, because of the focus now on real innovation technology, for us, at least on the VC side of things, we've been much more focused on real, revenue and profit-generating businesses as opposed to sort of this, this runaway, financing game that you see in the B2C side. So as that market shifts, Eight Roads and Fidelity in China is definitely, we're going to be playing big. So we have about 1.5 billion in fresh powder across Asia, which probably 550 million will be focused in China.
How many investments have you made this year?
Well, I just got here, so we're in the middle of getting one done.
You're in the middle of getting one done.
But in terms of fund, we'll never be one that does 100 investments a year. Okay, we're going to be very, very selective. And so, to date, I have to go back and look at the numbers, but it's not 100. It's pretty much in the order of, I would say, less than 20.
And the other panelists bullish on this, investing more capital, investing less capital, becoming more selective. How are you strategizing for the current market conditions?
We're still very active looking for deals, and we're conservative. But whenever we see a very good deal, definitely we're jumping. And but we also have patience on the other hand. We can wait. So because we're managing a 10-year period of fund, so we have to make sure it maximizes returns over the time. So if we don't see good deals, we have to wait. So I think at the moment, a lot of people actually a lot of VCs still looking for the next wave. In China, it's called phone call. I don't know how to translate it. So, but that's why we have to be patient sometimes. Because we see a lot of sectors which used to be hot, but now it's very dangerous or very, very risky. So.
Yeah, so at Lightspeed China, we think this is actually a very good time to invest. And we always have this contrarian view. And we also think for audience, if you are starting companies, this actually could be a good time to start. And I certainly don't recommend people start startups because they want to start startups. I think we really like people who really have some insight in certain industries, but people don't see it. And usually this is the slow time, this is a good time to build business because your user acquisition cost and customer acquisition cost is lower. Your competitor couldn't raise funding as easily as before, right? So a good example is like Google. And they really took off when the first internet bubble burst. And I was given an offer to join them as employee number 20. I turned them down, I did my own startups. And, but I kept in touch with Larry and Sergey. They showed me all the financials. What really shocked me was when the Yahoo stock went from 200 to 15, and the Google profitability just really skyrocketed. The reason was because at that time, people really looking for solutions more performance-based, right? And it's easier for them to acquire advertisers, acquire talents, because it's a slow market, people just don't ask for a lot. So we actually really believe this is a good time to start. Really, if you have something really real, this is a good time to start a company and we really want to invest.
How many startups out there with something really real? Okay, all right. There's some hands up there. Good. All right. Well, look. Before we end this, are there any burning questions from the audience? Something we didn't cover, and it has to be something. Okay. Anyone who hasn't asked a question before? Okay. Well, BJ, I think it's over to you because. Go ahead.
Sure. We have big news, great news. The State Council has just recently, a couple of days ago, announced venture capital is a national priority, and the government's going to give you a lot of love and a lot of money. Is there anything at all to worry about with this big news? Anyone worried or anything to watch out?
Okay, good question.
Actually, we are worried. We have the contrary view, right? So we are raising our AD fund, it's kind of oversubscribed. We suddenly find out these really big state-owned institutions, Zhongjing or the others, really want to put money in this. Now we suddenly have to calculate how much our RMB fund is coming from the government. And this is never, we thought about it's a problem, right? But it will create a bubble, I think, in RMB investment space. The government usually is not very efficient, right? Deploying capital. So that's something we worry about.
Right, sorry. Well, actually, several of our RMB funds has government money. So indeed, we do encounter a lot of regulation issue, and even when the portfolio company want to change some of the stakeholders change, so we do see a lot of paperwork and inefficiencies there. So. Well, I would say it's good and bad because once we raise the new fund, well, I would say the government money is going to help a lot as well. So it's there's no absolute answer for this, but there's a good way and also a bad way.
I think it's both good and bad. I think the bad of it is you have a lot more money, and including potentially some not so smart money coming in and potentially raising valuations up again. On the other hand, I think that money is also going to help accelerate the talent migration that we're seeing from the technical fields and technical areas. For us, we're not as I think sensitive to these sorts of the money volume out there because we take a view that just simply being a financial investor, you may get worried because if you're talking about pricing and that sort of thing, it's one thing. But if you're bringing something more to the table, you're more strategic, or you have deep capability within the investment team to really help these entrepreneurs. The ones that you want to bet on, the ones that are going to win, are the ones who aren't going after the highest price anyways. They're looking for people who really can add value to their companies, or investors who bring that strategic value. And so for us, we're a little bit less concerned about that part of it. But overall, it's, I would say, good and bad.
Okay.
Just very quick, I think government has already worked on the ingress. I hope they can next work on the egress, which is the exit, so they can actually come up with some new exit like capital market. Because I think Xinjiang is still in there, and I really hope a lot of all this capital flowing, there must be a good exit strategy for the company.
Very quickly, what I fear most from that kind of announcement is the return to the days where investors would get a term sheet and you have 24 hours to decide. Not merely to look at the opportunity, but to commit to invest. Forget about due diligence. Forget about documentation. Forget about discipline. It's a hot deal, you better get in. And I've seen it too many times. Those are scary days. Those were, and I hope it doesn't return, because it's not good for the ecosystem. It's not good for the entrepreneurs. It's not just the dollar sign, as I always tell my clients. It's not just the highest valuation that wins the day. You need investors who can actually add value, who know what they're doing, who can help you get to the next stage. It's more than just valuation.
Okay, well, on that note, we're going to wrap up the VC Dealmaker panel, and thank you for staying with us and allow us to do our traditional photo taking. And where's our official photographer to do this, please? Let's all give us just one moment to do this official photography photo session, and then we're going to do a networking reception, and so we'll have plenty of time to talk to these VCs about your latest startup.